Namaste, Galactic family. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Come on into this dimension. Come on into this sacred container. And I'm so excited to be here with one of my really good friends and also a colleague at certain points in time in our journey that we've shared together. We've done a lot of amazing work already coming up to this point of the topics we're going to discuss today. But this is Miss Marguerite Rigoglioso. She is a PhD scholar, and she is the founder of Seven Sisters Mystery School. And we have a deep shared love, I think, for the truth and for searching for it, especially in North Africa, amongst the goddesses there that have really built a legacy, I think, for all of the goddesses to come forward, and the ones in which we know today, such as Isis and Mother Mary. And so there's a much deeper story to be told within all of this. That why I love talking to you so much is you have so much deep insight into that. And I don't think there's a lot of pioneers in the feminine world that truly have, I think, excavated this information in the way that you have. So that's why it's always such a joy to come and meet with you and just bring our collaborative intellectual minds together and bring as much information forward for those watching. So first and foremost, I just want to say, how have you been and what have you been up to lately?
Oh, hi, Indy. It's just so great to be here with you. I was saying to you earlier, it always just feels like, a social event that I look forward to whenever I get to talk to you. I've been up and down, really, to be quite honest. I mean, in some ways, great. And then in other ways, riding the waves along with everyone else and kind of getting prepared for another round of teaching about it. What are the tools? What's actually happening? What do we need to do here? Getting a lot of information about that. And just going through it along with everyone else, probably sometimes more so because I don't know. I think there are like more adjusted people out there sometimes than I am. And I just try to use all my tools just to stay steady and keep on this path of spiritual growth.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very intense time for so many. I think we went through a huge splitting of the timelines, a lot of bifurcation of the timelines, a lot of war codes that have been activated in the grids. And that brings me to kind of start our conversation off as I just kind of wanted to see, what have been your thoughts on some of the current events that are going on? If you have any insight into just maybe some advice or just how to collectively look at the things that are going on. I think there's so much confusion and so much chaos, especially for us in the Western world, because, we're not over there. Yeah. I think where a lot of the Stargate war codes are activating.
That's right.
And so what is your kind of take on just current?
Yeah. Well, this has come up in a couple of the medicine ceremonies that I've done with my Sacred Feminine Plant Medicine Academy this fall, working with Mama Cacao in one of them and working with Lady Cannabis Asterion in another. And in one, we were working with the Holy Family. So a lot of information came through about them as being masters who landed down in that part of the world in the most recent incarnation that we know of them as. And that they came into that Jewish lineage and so forth, precisely to put their fingers on an area which was having a lot of issues, not to mention that they were in the midst of the whole Roman Empire, which is, filled with our lizard friend people. And so there was a bunch of stuff that came through in that. And then most recently, this past weekend, doing the cannabis ceremony with my class, I was getting such intensified information that my electricity went out and my internet went out. I couldn't even get back on the ceremony with my students. Luckily, I had a space holder who was holding everything, but it was just so intense. And I had just listened to Lisa Renee's most recent forecast on her shifting timelines. And yeah, may or may not have been a good idea to do before going into a cannabis ceremony, but there it all was. And just seeing the level of astral warfare. And, this is why I had stopped working with cannabis during the events of the recent years a few years ago, because when I realized I was getting up of a vibration where I was poking into dimensions, and I was just sensing a ton of cosmic warfare. I had to do so much clearing, and I was like, this is unpleasant. I don't even think I should be up here. And it felt a little bit like that on Saturday with me, of just seeing the chung, 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 and that most people are not really even aware of what's going on, because most of us don't quite have the psychic opening in normal everyday life, except for people like you, to be able to feel what is happening. And yet a lot is going on. It's affecting us all in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits. And we all could do well with getting a psychic upgrade, an energy clearing, and an upgrade. And that's what, my friend Dawn and I are going to be doing our Soul Relief and Renewal weekend. For that reason, I keep getting this massive message in all of my medicine ceremonies. Tell the people they need clearings and upgrades right now to get to the next level that we need, to be able to integrate the seeing, because the seeing is happening, but it's happening on emotional levels. Like, we're not conscious that we're seeing what's happening. And yet when we start getting these upgrades, and I know, you're offering them in your way as well, when we start getting these upgrades, we're able to integrate the seeing and not get blown out by what we're picking up on, like how much astral warfare there is, how much this is affecting us on the earth plane, how much this is impinging on our DNA, which is molting some of it off, turning some of it on. So we have to keep doing these psychic upgrades periodically. So that's like what I feel like is true for pretty much everyone. And it's being felt, all this intensity of the light coming in along with the warring is being felt emotionally as one kind of crisis or another, or a lot of emotional backsliding, like we feel like we're going into these emotions that we thought we got rid of long ago, or that we did our work on. People are having health crises, one thing after another. Everything's just feeling like more intense than it has been. So that's like the generic. And then we've got the specifics of things that have gone on. It's like, what is the trauma of the month or the trauma of the week? It was Hawaii. Now everyone has forgotten about that. And we're over in the portal, in the Middle East there with everything that's going on. And I mean, for years, I had received information about the negative interdimensional level of what had happened during the Holocaust. I had had visions about this and dreams about this, and saw some of my own karma related to these beings. We'll call them the lizard beings, who were feeding off all that Holocaust energy, fomenting it and whatnot. And now, but they just roam around, looking for other places, and they'll take the same people that were traumatized, get in with them, and then start making them do all this other stuff, and that's everyone. That's all of us. No culture and no person is immune to this phenomenon. So this is not like blaming, who's right, who's wrong. The very strong message that came through in my cacao ceremony was, we are all being played by these beings. Therefore, we must realize that when we get into these rages and these revenges and these this and that, no matter how much history goes along with it, we are being played. And we do have a choice of acting differently. And so if we're worried about some other warfaring place in the world, what we have to do is worry about, how are we treating our partner? How are we treating our neighbors? You can send the healing over there by getting in alignment and doing a better action with your people right where you are, right? So because we're all in the hologram. So that's kind of like what I would say is the baseline of what I get about this, and the kinds of energies that are involved just to possess people.
Yeah. And when you're speaking of reptilian beings, I'm wondering if maybe you're speaking of like Anunnaki bloodlines or Anunnaki factions.
I think so.
some of my research has kind of led me to that. Because when everything kicked off, I think October 7th through the 10th, the major events, I was tuning into the grids, and gosh, persecution, crucifixion, martyrdom, exactly what you just said, Holocaust.
Yeah.
All of that was so intense, so powerful. I just kept feeling like it was God wars.
Yeah, God wars.
Yeah.
Totally what we would call God wars, meaning these negative high frequency beings, as Oracle Girl, calls them. Yeah, I mean, I think that they are partly the Anunnaki. There was like this hybriding that went on that you've been talking about, Lisa Renee, other people. I don't say that I fully understand these timelines and these interbreedings, but I have long had the sense that it was Anunnaki lizard what I'll call lizard hybrids that are like the Zeuses of the world and so forth and so on. And they are still at it.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is absolutely fact, because, it's not like I've ever decoded the Sumerian tablets myself or anything, right. But I think there's a lot of assumption that potentially, all of the prophets in which descended and brought forth the three Abrahamic religions, including Abraham, were descendants of the Anunnaki in one way or another, that they were chosen from a priesthood of Enlil and of Enki. And so when we go back to Lisa Renee and we talk about those Enki overlays that she's talking about, we're clearing, I think that it comes through just simply the way in which these religions see the path to God, and that, they're really it's warring over the same Anunnaki gene code, just like a different version of it. That's basically. Right. And so, it's like, how do we clear that? Even as I tune into the grid structures, because I did some remote views on the Stargate of the Temple Mount, I think it's all the contention kind of boils at that location. Yeah. The Archangel Michael ley line runs from Ireland all the way down to Caramel, Israel, which is not far from the Temple Mount Stargate. I think they are running distortions in that ley line. Enemy patterning, and it's where they basically, pin people against each other. It's like there's a greater planetary brain or logos minefield that's being hijacked to run this enemy patterning into the grids, to affect the people, to affect the land, to affect the consciousness, the reality, the dimensions, the timelines, everything. And so it's putting so much blinder and so much veils, and again, reactivates all that persecution.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely overwhelming. So I think you're absolutely right. It starts with where we're at and sending all of our love out to our inner circle, and then being able to expand that further into those pockets and areas of the world that just really need unity.
That's right. What I got in my most recent medicine ceremony on Saturday was that your heart is literally the center of the universe. By virtue of that phenomenon that you might have read about, that the universe is ever expanding, therefore the center is everywhere at all times. Okay. So if we tune in that, and this is what I'm going to be bringing in big time with this weekend that I'm doing in November 3rd, if we tune in that our heart's the center of the universe, our pineal gland is the center of the universe, our womb, or not a bindu point, is the center of the universe, you can do a lot of activity from there. So it's not even that you're just noodling around with your own, minor petty grievances with your neighbor in the fence. It's like if you do an action there that is beneficial toward healing, and then you mentally or energetically send out the rays from your heart, you literally are like tapping the spider's web. The whole spider's web is going to bounce. And that is how powerful we are. We can each heal any of those conflicts by sending out the energy from our heart, from our womb, from our third eye. And speaking of wombs, the part of the Enki Enlil thing, whoever is right or wrong over there, whatever we're going to argue, is it Enki, is it Enlil, whatever, that's just another argumentation that's happening. See it, people. But the idea is, what's missing there? the womb. It's all about genetic noodleization, genetic laboratory thingy. Whenever that goes on, I'm like, guess what's missing?
Yeah.
The feminine,
the nurture,
healthy feminine. Therefore, how could that guy be the center of the universe? Either of the brothers. You know what I mean? No, they're like lab coat people who are just taking DNA and weaving it. Not well. If they want to do weaving, they should study the weavings of the Berber people of North Africa. You know what I mean? And so it's like they're just fiddling around. It's going against the law of the womb of the universe. This is what we have to bring back. So when we've got any channelers well-meaning, and we're all bringing in part of information, we're all bringing in part hijacked information. Like that's what I got in my ceremony.
Yeah.
You have to be aware that as oracles, part of it is corrupted because it will get infiltrated. And so we just have to be careful. But what we want to do is we want to bring in that womb awareness, that womb power. If it's missing in a story, know that that is not a full, something's going on there. Okay. We need to get back to this intrinsic, holy, universal mother womb energy and principle. And that's what's going to, get us all in order again.
So you've been talking about this Soul Renewal and Relief Weekend, November 3rd through the 5th, an online event that you're doing with Don Del Vecchio. Okay. And this is to just to help people with integrating all of this and
that's right.
Clearing all of this.
Clearing, sealing up holes in the energy field, filling then with the light codes, the Sophianic codes and the love codes, and then radiating them outward. That's like the structure of the weekend from a Friday late afternoon through a Sunday, late morning, essentially. And so it's just this place of going and receiving. Dawn and I are transmuting and transmitting a lot. And Indigo, as I was saying to you before I got on with you, in the medicine ceremony on Saturday, they're like, it's time for you to start mentioning that you are an Andromedan ambassador. Years and years ago, in a medicine ceremony out in the Redwoods, I got from on high, you're a Pleiadian ambassador, remember? And I was like, oh my God, come on. I'm not going to be telling people I'm a Pleiadian ambassador, but it grew on me. And over time I did. But now this is like the higher octave iteration of the Pleiadian ambassadorship is the Andromedan. And what I got in my ceremony is that the Andromedans are like turning on their volume more now. They were kind of quiet. There were only a few people and they're sort of more in the background. And now they're like, yeah, we need to amplify this with our platinum light remedies for everybody. And so I was given a lot of meditations coming through. So Dawn and I are both like long time oracle priestesses, meditators, devotees of the Yeshua Christos Sophianic energies and so forth. And we have a lot of things that we're just leading people through in a very relaxed kind of way to just do that, get to the next level kind of thing so that you can not feel all jangled and feel better. And I can't wait for it because I'm like feeling all jangled up until the time of this thing. And it's like, mercy.
Yeah. Well,
we go through the eye of the needle now or what?
I definitely support all of your healing containers and all of your courses that you've taught. So I'll definitely leave the links down in the description for everyone watching today. If they would like to join you for that weekend, I'm sure it is going to be so amazing. And I just really love the work that you're doing. But getting into some of
yours as well.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, I did actually want to bring up in terms of Gridwork. I am actually doing a Gridwork ceremony tomorrow to kind of highlight all of these points on the globe. People can still get in for this. It's at 1 p.m. CST, October 25th. And we're going to be, clearing the Temple Mount, clearing the parasites in Paris, clearing the sphere within the sphere activations at the Vatican, because the mechanical symbolism that they have there, beast machines. So we're gonna be doing some grid work. Trying to clear out the Archangel Michael ley line, etc. So just kind of keeping the global clearings in terms of grid work, and the land in accordance to also the internal work we're doing.
Bless you for doing it. Every time I tune into your videos and just see what you're doing, it's like, oh gosh, thank Goddess.
Yeah, we have each other positioned in different places to bring the full picture of the work that needs to be done. Definitely.
Yeah. It's really important work. So that's a really big thing you can do from, leading people from this locale or wherever they are deliberately with specific prayers and interactions and things like that are inspired by what your information and your codes. So that's great. I love it.
Thank you. Well, the part of this I was so excited to talk about with you is, as I informed you before and everyone watching, that I am going to be taking a trip to Algeria in November. So I'm going to be going to the lands of the unknown for me, but it's rich in so many ways, valuable in so many ways that I think people might not realize how, not just Algeria, but Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, how these lands are really the basis and foundation of a lot of that Atlantean wisdom that has come forward. If not that, this is where it is. This is the core.
Exactly. And Helene Hagen has a really beautiful book called The Shining Ones. I'm looking at it, I think, over there. She's kind of makes a case like this is a pre-Egyptian, hello, what about these people,
Mm-hmm.
And I was always fascinated by that. I was like, yeah, what about these people? I kind of keyed in. It kind of got veiled over with all the Egyptian razzle and dazzle, right?
But it does.
No, yes. Move a little farther west and even south. And it's very interesting. And that's exactly what you're picking up on.
Well, I think we have to go through that Egyptian activation because it's the portal and the gateway, right? And then it's like, oh, there's more to this. You've been studying this for years.
Yeah. I mean, for at least 25 years. I mean, I went to Tunisia in 2005 because, like you, I got really fascinated. My specific fascination was, quote unquote, the Libyan Amazons, okay? Meaning all of North Africa, or it was a designation that could have actually meant the entire African continent, maybe with the exception of Egypt. But I found, not only legendary descriptions, but historical accounts of these Amazon women in Africa. And I just got completely fascinated. I had to go over to Tunisia like you. I didn't get to Algeria or Tin Hinan's grave. I did not get to the Tassili frescoes, which have the Amazons in battle, but I was, at these other important places. And it is interesting to think about female warriors and how that developed. And I think it kind of developed as a response to what was going down when the men were getting cut off at the knees and they weren't even doing a good job anymore of protecting the feminine, the matriarchate. And they were like, we got to take this stuff into our own hands. And they could be really fierce, good warriors. So all these stories are in North Africa that Medusa was a queen of the Gorgon tribe. And, there are others there. And it just feels like the whole North African region with these women who you might call Berber or you could call Tuareg, have really strong Amazon roots. Even their name, Amazigh, is the name of the people, Amazigh. It's kind of where the Amazon word came from, right? So that, when you start connecting the dots, that there was a lot of female warriorhood. And neither you nor I are condoning female warriorhood, But it's interesting that it had to come up as a phase for the matriarchate to protect itself, right? Or seemingly.
Well, it seems like if it's a legend of rebirth, because as I've been following some of the history of Teen Hinan, who also carries the, I don't know, I guess the banner of the mother of us all, similar to Neith,
Yes.
and the similarity between Teen Hinan and Neith.
I know.
It's like, was this the same person? Was this the same goddess?
Well, this is the thing. In the ancient texts, you never know. You never know if they're talking about a person or a deity. And even, I think it's Plato who says that, well, some people didn't know if Isis was a person or a goddess, you know. And it's like, well, right, because there's that ancient confusion. Like when the history gets too far from where people can actually remember, it starts all getting murky. And it's like, well, I think it was the time when the masters or the netters were walking the earth, right? And then we consider them gods. They are higher frequency beings, but we consider them gods. They are where we were. They are potentially where we could be going. They also had their hijackings and everything.
Yeah, definitely. With Teen Hinan, it was as if she was the one who rebuilt society after the fall of Atlantis. That's kind of what I was gathering with some of the research, is that her legacy was because she kind of escaped this, cataclysm, and was able to trek through the Sahara and just rebuild these tribes and rebuild this nation. And so I think it's pretty profound. And I was wondering if you recognized this. I put this here just for you today.
I know, that's fantastic. You see those crossed arrows all over Tunisia, and obviously that's with Neith, in her insignia, with the Ankh. Yeah, you got it all going on over there.
Yeah. Well, I've always loved the crossed spears, the crossed arrows. I've worked with it in symbol induction and coding into the sacral chakra just to protect from quarrels and arguments. And, it's kind of, just symbol code spiritual technology that I've liked to use. But so it's really resonated. It hit so hard at the womb for me. Working with it in the sacral chakra, that this in turn is then the symbol of Neith, and then possibly also Teen Hinan as well. And with all the work you've done, you've come across a lot of symbolism that's related to
in fact,
Neith.
I'm wearing this now. It's called the pelta, and it was shown in ancient Greece, but it's really a North African. It's both like the orant posture goddess with her arms up, and it also is a shield. It's like a shield that was used, that you see the Amazons have this shaped shield that they're using. So it was a protection, kind of like what you're saying, but it literally was, something, a physical object. And then it's related to the Aegis, which is also a shield that these priestesses of Athena, who's a version of Neith, essentially, would wear in North Africa, made of goat skin. And again, it was like a protection. And a lot of times that Aegis came to be the head of Medusa, which is the queen of the Gorgons, the queen of the Amazonian women, right? And so this thing is really cool because it's a Berber symbol, but it has very ancient, like the triangle, it's the womb, all these Berber Tuareg symbols, ancient womb imagery in them. Okay.
And because it seems like you've really got activated through the jewelry. Like you got activated through all of the pieces of art that they created there. That was like the biggest part of your journey and trip there, that you were like inspired by. Yeah,
that's right. I just went through the symbols and the jewelry and also the weavings. There's Makilam has written a book on the Berber, the women of Kabylia, and all of their, I'd have to look, all of their weavings echo a lot of these symbols as well. And it maintained in the jewelry of the Tuareg, who then became Islamicized, but
Yeah.
really they kept these ancient symbols that go way back and that are feminine power amulets and things and invokers. And the women would wear all these crosses and things, and this would be a sign of their wealth. They'd be made of silver, and they would wear them in multiples and carry them around and so forth. There's just so much to this.
So much.
It's amazing. And I just want to say, good for you wow, have fun going to Tin Hinan's grave
I'm so excited.
carrying those energies, because when I went to Tunisia in 2005, it was that similar thing of this reverence, of this fascination with uncovering, what's still there, what you can still find on the ancient doors of this old quarter. They're all crossed arrows and, these symbols and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
my
that's
goodness.
the kind of stuff you might end up finding, and then talk to the local people and get the local books, because you can get stuff in there that you can't find those books anywhere else. Just get them and bring them back with you, because they'll give you the ancient lore and so forth, aka the histories, essentially.
I'm kind of truly coming to believe that, the Berbers are the Atlantean people. Like it's still here. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's right in front of our faces. We just haven't been able to look deep into it. And I wanted to ask you this question as well, because you just kind of touched on it with it being Islamicized, you said. How do you think that transformation has played out in terms of, because the ancient Berbers and Tuaregs, I mean, these were pagans. These were pagan beliefs. Tin Hinan was a pagan woman. I mean, they did idol worship. Even I was looking up with the Berbers and the Tuaregs with grave sites. They would go to the grave sites and they would do rituals and spells and take oaths at the graves. Like, this was considered a very sacred thing. So it's interesting to me that her grave site is still there and available to go to and access. But how do you think culturally, like, this affects the world and just overall views of being able to hold those ancient antiquities, but then also bringing in now as Islamic religion, practice, philosophy, beliefs, and how has that affected, do you think, just the community and overall transformation?
All the ancient religions, beliefs got overlaid, hijacked, taken over by these forces that we were talking about at the beginning. And turned into something else, where the feminine goes missing and the masculine becomes really controlling and hostile. And so that's why it is important to go back to these places, talk to the local people and see what they're doing, because you're going to learn so much of what they are still holding and carrying from the very ancient times. And they might justify that they're Islamic, or, they do this in Catholic countries. Oh, we're Christians, but they're doing these spells. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why my teacher, Lucia Chiavala Birnbaum at the California Institute of Integral Studies, back when I was there, she was always like, you look to the folk practices, that's where you find your information. I almost went into folklore studying that, because I was like, oh yeah, that's where that ancient info is. Right. I knew intuitively it's not going to really be with the scholars and the histories and all that and the warfare lineages that they talk about. It's underneath, and all that veneration going on at the graves is still going on. They do it for even the Islamic leaders that died there, but it's still a very pre-Islamic practice, So you're going as this intrepid researcher to get your intuitive information as you really pick up on the unbroken lineages. It does feel broken in one way, but then when you look at what the actual people are doing, you realize it is not broken. And I do agree with you, because I had a real bee in my bonnet about, like I was saying earlier, why does Egypt get all the glory?
Right. I mean, well, I think there's a reason for it. There's something that is being protected.
Okay. Right. It's like, oh no, look over there.
Yeah.
Look to the glittery gold of Tutankhamun. Don't look over here at the grave of Tin Hinan,
Yeah.
So I think that's right. But I think we're getting ready, to uncover with respect. And there's always a little thing that I did learn in grad school about being culturally respectful, right? Because a lot of times people go in, they're not of that culture, and they're like, oh, we see all the treasury of what this is, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So it just does take a little bit of awareness of not appropriating,
Right.
But I know you don't have that spirit at all. But that is something that comes up as well, because there is that they do want it protected, right? On some level, people want it protected. So yeah, there's a lot. Anyway, I'll just pause there.
Yeah, there's a lot with that. I think there's a lot of jewels in the Sahara.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I don't even want to use the word treasure, but I think there's, it's rich underneath those sands, and there's so much we're barely even, getting we're just getting like the tip of the iceberg, so to speak.
That's right. And Indy, what do you think about this? I'm like, why did that get all desertified? And I've heard various oracles say, well, there was nuclear war over there. Blasted it out. Because I think some of the ancient art indicates that it was lush at one time there. So that brings up a whole other question. Who was in there doing nuclear? When and why? What were they trying to eradicate? Right?
Yes.
That's
true.
A whole other layer of it. That place should not be a desert.
That's true. It could definitely be from nuclear warfare. It could have been through the just the stories of the fall of Atlantis, where we know they blew up the crystal generators.
That's right.
The Eye of Mauritania was supposedly potentially one of the locations that the actual, the famous city of Atlantis, in which we see that's circular, that has the water running through. I mean, the Eye of Mauritania very much could be where that initiated or happened, or geological upheaval took place.
Combined with the cutting down of all the trees, the sacred groves.
Yes.
Everywhere where you've got desert, that on top of whatever else went on, they cut down the sacred groves.
Yes.
Horrible, because that disrupts humans' ability to connect in. Those are the antennae of the earth, right? And so when those go down, people have less access to the information from the divine realms, because the trees are the ones that connect all the realms, the above, the middle, and the below.
Yeah, that's true. There's a couple trees that were coming forward actually when we were doing some grid work. Just trying to remember what those are. I'm kind of drawing a blank, but one was like a specific tree, like a fever tree. I think the fever tree may have been the tree. I know it's big in South Africa, but the sap from the fever tree is very healing. And I think there was legend that it was also used to create the crown, or the crucifixion, crown of thorns of Christ.
Oh, wow.
That tree specifically.
Wow.
Known to be big in Africa. I don't know if it was big in the northern regions, but it may have been at one time. And then there's another tree that begins with an M that's also really important. The marigold.
Yeah,
I'm drawing up.
No,
I gotta look into it. But yeah. So much with all of that. Where do you think there's going to be a great resurrection of this ancient female warriorhood knowledge that will somehow unify at least what has come forward in terms of what the Anunnaki have brought forward, I guess, with Sumerian tablets? I've always said there needs to be a female scholar that decodes those Sumerian tablets, because I mean, if we look at all the places and where we have information, Zachariah Sitchin, and everyone else who's decoded it seems to have studied Zachariah Sitchin,
right,
or have taken his account.
Then you get the woman in there, and it's like, no, this actually meant she of the voluminous vulva, blah blah blah. You're like, wow, that's not the translation we got, you know. It happens every time. So I agree with you that I think we do need a female scholar who has the sensibility of the womb to go in there and look at it in a different way. I started looking at the ancient Greek that way, and it was amazing how I would be like, oh, that thing can mean 5 different things. Why did they pick that meaning for it? So, but anyway, your question, we were leading, right? Getting women in there just on the scholarly level.
Mhm.
And then, then there are people who are like scholar priestesses, kind of, that's really where we need to start going. Because I think these women, these priestesses were warriors, they were scholars, they were oracles, they were half the time divine conception priestesses, because I've talked about Medusa with you with that. And really, it feels like the foundation of some of these North African tribes of Amazons was divine birth. Neith being a self-creating goddess. So it's all these mysteries of conception. And I think that, we don't want to go back to warriorhood, right? We want to go all the way back. We want to go all the way back to the peaceful womb of Lemuria. We want to go all the way back to Earth as an Eden realm, where we do our learning through love and light, not through all of this difficulty. I think that's the memory that we have, and that's where we want to go. We're seeding this for the future of humanity.
I want to ask you, so you did write the forthcoming in the Proceedings of the Second World Congress on Matriarchal Studies. This is where you did all of your research in Tunisia. Is this available for other people to get this?
Okay, where that article is that I gave you is in this book called Societies of Peace, edited by Heide Güttner Abendroth. And so it got published in there. And that paper that I gave you, I had read at a congress, but then it got published into here, along with other fascinating papers and articles about matriarchy. What is it really, and how does it spell the original human cultural form, and why, who's still doing it, and why do we need to go back to that, and how could we go back to it?
Like you just said, it seems to be like a Lemurian revival.
A Lemurian revival is matriarchy, matriarchal studies. I was involved in all of this back in the early 2000s in graduate school and beyond. So it's Societies of Peace, Matriarchies, Past, Present, and Future. People can still get that book, I believe. And it's really great, fascinating information in there.
Well, I want to say, for one, if we ever decoded the Sumerian tablets, I want to nominate you as the head female scholar and bring me to your table, and let's bring all the brilliant minds of women, and let's just break down those tablets and put together something amazing. I'm just putting this offering on the table.
I know. That's why it's like those niggly scholars who study Sumerian and Coptic and ancient Egyptian. I mean, kudos to them. Ancient Greek. I didn't have the patience to go through all of that. It really wasn't my path, but we need these balanced, multi-talented scholars to go in there. Yes. We're putting the seeds out for these new young women to go into academia awake, not get taken over by what all the programming that goes in that says, no, you can't look at that. You can't think of it that way. That isn't true. Why are you doing that? And just go right in.
Yeah, I think that's a good message for everyone watching today. And hopefully it inspires somebody to pioneer some of that. One thing that I just want to touch on too, that you put in that article, was you touched on Lake Tritonise. And I haven't heard anybody talk about Lake Tritonise until, of course, you're like a pot of gold, like miracles. I was going to show you my chart really quick when I was kind of preparing for Algeria, but I tried to chart. I tried to chart Lake Tritonise actually,
Yeah.
This is the birthplace of Neith.
Yeah.
And the
The birthplace
birthplace
of Neith and Athena, who kind of is one and the same. Yeah. Yes,
this,
because they think that what is now called the Chot El Jerid, Chott is the name of like big marshes or big lakes in this area of the world. Chot El Jerid is thought to be the ancient Lake Tritonise, which at one point was like, it was something like 900 miles wide. And then it's dried up. So Chot El Jerid still exists. And that's what they think might be the remnants of this big lake, which most likely did exist.
and this was in the time of Atlantis and then just perished somewhere
That's
during
right.
that time.
That's right. I believe so, because Herodotus, writing in the 500s or 600s of the before the Common Era, that historian was talking about it. The implication was that it was there at that time, but it's not even clear because he's talking also about these histories and these legends of these female tribes here and so forth. So yeah, like Tritonus, that's where I went. I went to that Chot. I have photographs of myself.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I
That's
gotta get to this
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's really interesting. And when you talk about the nuclear warfare, I just wanted to mention Safar. I think this is Safar here. No, it's down here. But yeah, if you look at these lands down here, I mean, this is some of the most intense regions of the Sahara that just look like they've been completely melted.
Yeah.
Rock formation that's just, I guess you can't even hike in these. You have to go by camel and it takes days to cross through this area. But I guess there's like ancient cities and things buried in these areas of the desert that are just.
Wow. That is fascinating. You know, that takes an intrepid explorer too.
Right. And I think you touched on Safar in that article a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, all connected here to the ancient history of Atlantis. So there is so much here for us to discover.
Yeah, I mean, look at that swath, Indy, that neutralized northern Africa, where all of a sudden down below there, oh, it's green again.
Oh, right.
Right around, okay, Benin, Burkina Faso, etc. It's like, and right above it, no problem with the greenery. You know, why there?
Yeah. So
Is
something happened right here, and this whole region is Atlantis, is what I see here. So whatever the fall was had to do with why this is the way it is.
Well, that's a really good insight, you know, that it wasn't just sinking into the ocean, but it was dealing with landforms that are still above the ocean.
And if you look for evidence of sinking into the ocean, you have this great slide here.
Wow.
You can see going down into the Atlantic.
Oh, wow.
Where it looks like the whole continental shelf's been kind of knocked over here.
Wow.
And you can see how the elevation starts to slide into the water. From the Eye of Mauritania.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I love how you're just looking at this land and discerning patterns from on high, right? That is fascinating. It's like looking at the moon. It's like looking at Mars.
It tells a tale, doesn't it? It tells a story.
Yet it's on our planet. Exactly. What went on? So let me ask you a question. What is the thing that is drawing your heart the most to go visit this grave of Tin Hinan? What is inspiring you about this?
It's a calling. Every single goddess activation and invocation that I've done in the past, I did an invocation to Ashera. I did, Medusa, recollecting her head, putting her head back together. It's just something activates inside me. It comes to me. It literally comes to my front door in symbolism and in ways, and I'm just inspired as if I'm supposed to be a voice that brings the consciousness forward.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I feel like there's something so hidden within Teen Hinon's story, and that it hasn't really been told. I think the French are the only ones to have brought forth some stories about it, because how they've gone in and colonized and have warred with Algeria for so long. And, you know, they've kind of taken and altered the stories. But I mean, all I can find are stories in French. So I actually have to take French literature and throw it in my Google Translator and see what it says, because I don't know French. But I don't think there's been anything really published in English, not too much, really anything, except for brief inserts of her tomb site and stuff like that within a couple books. So there hasn't been anything published on the story. And I think some of the channeling that I've been getting is that she was a sacred crystal holder. She was accessing portals, that time traveling. She was going through the Nissanian pentagram in Algeria and utilizing that, and also shutting those pentagrams down in terms of negative access of Jinn overlord rulership on the earth and shadow realms. I've been getting like an expansive insight of how technical her journey actually was, but now I'm trying to piece together what maybe it actually looked like.
That's fascinating. I think that's great that you're really literally unearthing what she's about. And the other piece was that you know, in some of the sources I looked at, it's like the grave of an unusually tall woman. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how tall was she? You know, I mean, you see her bones, how they're arrayed, and her legs are like, wow, over here. I wonder if anybody provides a measurement, and are we talking, you know, 6'5"? What are we talking about?
Right.
But either way, it's like a throwback to the giants, even like the giant energy on the earth, right? The DNA that goes along with that. That's another fascinating layer that I think goes along with everything you're saying about what were her capacities.
Yeah, that's a good thing to look into. And I think it's said in some text that the jinns were giants. So if there's crossover between Jinn folklore and Teen Hinon's time, and that she was working with jinns or was called by jinns, and even that a jinn was in love with her. I've heard this as well.
Oh my gosh, of course. That would, of course, you know, because she was this hugely important priestess, essentially, right? So, you know, when you go there, talk to the people and talk to like the local archaeologists, because a lot of times those folks are not as corrupted as like British American archaeologists, and they still retain the love of the locality. Or you can also talk to the keepers of the museum or the site or whatever. A lot of times they have the information, and just record everything, get your audio recorders going and everything, and see what they say, because you're going to be sparked by other things that they tell you. That's going to be other pieces of knowledge that will help your oracle know more about her too. That's why I loved going to those places in those little localities, and there was a museum right there. What's in there? What does that museum curator say about it? Or who's the local archaeologist who's kind of a little bit of a maverick? You know, you want to find those people.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you for the advice and for all of the inspiration and all of your literature, because I mean, I really have to dive into your work, honestly, to find things at this point to inspire the journey of all of this, because again, there's just not a lot about it. And so thank you so much for your work. I truly and genuinely appreciate everything that you've done. And again, I just recommend everyone to go and read your books, your work. You have so much published
Yeah, you know where
stuff
that,
at this point.
a lot of that information on Neith and Athena and their cult of divine birth is in my book, Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity. And I don't know if you have that one, because I touch on it in Cult of Divine Birth in ancient Greece. But Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity is the one where I really go into Neith, Athena, the Libyan Amazons, the Thermodon Amazons up in Turkey, how they're all related, to divine birth and so forth. So that might be, if you don't have that book, you might want to get that chapter and read it before you go, because Neith is related also to Tanit, the goddess of Carthage and all that. And there's a whole contested thing about was there child sacrifice, so we pretty much know, look, there was hijacking and takeover everywhere. These goddesses were not immune either. We're trying to clear it all up and clean it up, for the goddesses as well, so that we can get back to the original codes of humans and these goddesses. Before all, because Lisa Renee talks about all the manipulation on the astral level of the pieces of these goddesses, and it's hair raising. Like, oh my gosh, right? So we have a mission from down here, because our heart is the center of the universe, to affect the hologram with everything we do. So every time you bring in insight, information, it goes into the hologram and it starts correcting timelines and so forth.
Yes, that's so true. The power of, and I think that's a good message to leave everyone with, is the power of your own energy and your will to explore and to be a co-creator with the divine and to create new pathways. Because we're creating new earth together, and we're creating the future, and we're aligning and becoming the prophecy as we create it. And there's just so much that I think sometimes a lot of people can forget how powerful they are, right? As they take on their ascension journey and their ascension process to become a scribe themselves. And to see themselves being able to actually transmit truth into the world. So it's such a beautiful thing. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's just a wonderful conversation and deep dive with you. And is there anything else you would like to speak to everyone watching today?
Basically just for people to go to the link underneath for the Soul Relief and Renewal Weekend, as well as the links for what you're doing, because my community on my channel will also be watching this, and I'd like them to connect in with what you're doing. And people can always go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com, find out more about my school, what I do, how I work with people and so forth. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, just the Gridwork session we're going to be doing tomorrow. And then also, when we were touching on the Lemurian revival, my implant and seal removal certification course, I teach all about the female implant system and just how a lot of these implants rooted through forced breeder programs and goes back to the Lemurian timeline and the original Holocaust of those timelines. So if people are wanting and interested in learning more about all of that, and also how to remove the implants for themselves, I now offer a course and certification for that. So that was a really big birthing for me.
Wow.
That came forward, taught all 4 of the seal and implant systems. So that will also be down in the description for everyone watching if they're interested.
Yeah, I think I have to do that one. Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
I'll send you the information.
All right, sister.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow. And thank you for everyone watching. Be sure to subscribe, and also subscribe to Marguerite's channel as well. Links will be down in the description, and we love you all so much. Namaste and take care.
Have a good trip.